evening to all of you. As the Editor-in-Chief, I welcome all the distinguished members of the real estate industry at the 4th Estate World Summit and the awards which are going to happen today. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here today for this 40 minutes talk show, which we've entirely planned to understand what the real estate industry in the Western region is going. Real estate is such a diverse subject that even if we were to talk about it perhaps 365 days, 24/7, and we'll probably still not have touched the tip of the glacier. So I think as a media person, what I thought for the next 40 minutes, what I would like to discuss with my distinguished panel is as to what could be more action-oriented in this industry rather than something that could only be debate-oriented. So gentlemen, let's be, I first thought that one of the most pertinent things when we're talking about one of the most expensive real estate markets in the world, are these current price points going to stay? Do you think they are right price points to have in this market? And if at all it is, then how far do you think we'll actually have the end user actually buying the properties that we're looking at instead of are we just inviting the investor into the real estate to come and invest more, make more investment? So I'll start with you.
I think that's a wonderful question, and it's a puzzle for everybody, right from the Prime Minister and Planning Commission down to the lowly builder who considers to make the single house. The issue is very simple. We are still touching the top end of the pyramid. I think we have a long way to go. Mumbai has 50% plus people living in jhopatpattis. Most of the cities have aspirations to growth. I think what has really happened is we are all seeing growth, but the growth is so small and so microcosm that we have still a huge way to go in order to really make any success in the real estate as a business. So I think from a holistic perspective, the next 10 years is going to be fabulous because the opportunity of going down the pyramid will increase. You'll get growth in all the segments, and that is definitely going to happen. There is no alternative to that. So I think next 10 years, you're going to see growth more in the bottom end of the pyramid or going down the pyramid rather than the top end of the pyramid. And I think then you'll be able to satisfy yourself and say, affordable? Yes, because you have affordability at different segments of the level that you go, and we should be able to achieve it. Unfortunately, today, neither the government nor the private enterprise has been able to satisfy both the ends of the pyramid.
Thanks to government regulation, they have still 1.33 FAR in the city of the Mumbai, whereas the whole world is working on 10 to 30 FAR. So that's the first constraint. Second, another thanks to government because they don't release the supply. I think this is the only field where you can make still money today. I think someone was mentioning me, in India, among all the industries, real estate is the only one field where still you can make 18 to 24% IRR. Only this sector is giving return. None of the industry, none of the aviation sector, none of the mobile companies, what Niranjan mentioned, nobody is able to give these returns. So that point you must keep in mind.
And let me tell you something very curious. I'm sure many of us would be aware of, but nonetheless, let me repeat that the cost of construction in some of the buildings in Mumbai are actually touching 7,500 rupees to 8,000 rupees a square feet. And in the same areas, there are buildings which were constructed perhaps a decade back and which were sold at 4,500 rupees price ultimately. So what I'm talking about is in a decade, the prices have actually shot up from where they were to multifold. At least I don't belong to that school of thought. I'm not going to endorse that view that in the next 6 months to a year, at least in Mumbai, the prices are here to stay.
Sure. Mr. Harish, since the prices are on the way up, where is the money going to come from, you feel? We need a lot of money to develop all the real estate. So where do you think it's possibly the investments or the next set of investments that would be required for the real estate industry should happen from?
There has been one announcement that has just been made recently, and that is relating to the ECBs, external commercial borrowings. This was announced in the budget this year, but the notification has only come just now. The government, the RBI has said that up to $1 billion will be allowed to be brought in this financial year, 2012-13. That means within the next 3.5 months. For a housing project, at least 60% of the FSI has to be utilized for under 600 square feet of residential houses. The remaining 40% can be for higher amounts. Now, this is all to be routed through the National Housing Bank. It is also going to be, this limit of 1 billion also includes the financial institutions, the housing financial institutions. So therefore, it's going to be available to developers and to housing finance.
Right.
Now, this is one way in which some amount of money is going to come in, but 5,000 crores is nothing for the country as a whole.
Certainly.
So this is not going to solve the problem at all.
Sure. Redevelopment is really, what is everybody talking about in Mumbai as far as real estate development is concerned. But, I mean, on another level, do you really think it's going to solve the problem? I mean, do you think there might be an oversupply at some point of time?
The point is, there's no other way to go as far as redevelopment is concerned. What's the choice? Buildings are crashing, they're getting old, 60 years, 70 years, 80 years. They've been built at a time where cement was not of good quality. Quality of construction had at that point of time been decrepit. 50% of the population lives either in jhopatpattis or in buildings which are collapsing. So I think that's a great opportunity for the future.
Given the price points that Mumbai has today and the real estate is so expensive, and the fact is that SMEs are the backbone of India. They're about 95% of businesses in India which are rather SMEs. Now, have you as developers projected the fact that there are some small businesses which every residential area or every development that takes place would be required? Let me name some very basic businesses like a pharmacy or probably a dry clean store or even a community store. Now if the real estate is going to be that price high, how would these businesses, which are so pertinent to that particular community, actually manage to stay there? Have some variable price points been worked in a single, let's say, a privately developed community to help these businesses to come in? Because otherwise, who's going to service them? Nobody's going to come from Pune, I'm sure, from a pharmacy to deliver medicines to a residential project in Bandra, let's say. So has something been done towards it, or has it been thought of in the direction where SMEs could actually be involved, which are most important SMEs for a project?
If you take the property in terms of rentals, then the differential pricing automatically falls into place because a pharmacy or XYZ which requires a lower rate of return will automatically fall into that rental which it cannot pay. And that is why your returns on rentals today are, for instance, in the case of residential, many times 2% or 3%. So the person who's the owner of the property will actually get lower rate of return in terms of giving such essential items, but will bank on the appreciation of the property to give him the balance return. So these things have historically worked for cities and all over the world. It's not only the price of problem for Mumbai. So if you take properties all over the world, the differential pricing happens through rentals rather than in terms of price points, in terms of sale. You have to get the end of shortages. You have to create surpluses. The day you create surpluses, your problem will not exist. It will be in the mind. For instance, you have different types of soap. It caters to different categories of customers. You have different types of washing powder. You have different, segments in every society. So why not in the terms of property pricing? It happens all over the world. So there's no strange action. But the day you create artificial shortage right from the start, then you are worried. Oh my God, how do I give it to the tailor shop? How do I give it to the ration shop? How do I give it to XYZ? It doesn't exist once you create surpluses.
Although we know that hotels are a very long gestation business, they don't make money for many years, and yet if that's what a person knows, he's going to do it. So he's going to buy smaller space perhaps than he would have liked to, and yet he's just going to continue his business because people do not want to displace themselves. If a person is living in Bombay, he's going to live here. He's not easily going to move to Pune or to Nagpur or to Kolhapur. And a person in Nagpur is not easily going to move here.
No, but my concern is that once the redevelopment happens, the price point that a pharmacist was paying at that same area where he had his shop is going to be multiple times, but the need for the community is still going to be there for a pharmacy. Has that at all been addressed? Because this is less to do perhaps with the small business owner and more to do with the residents or the people who are living there.
Usually we make a provision for these essential shopping, particularly laundry or pharmacy and so on. So these are the essential services and we try to subsidize them. Probably you try to give them at a different rate because it is adding the value of the residential colony. Because if you have a pharmacy or any essentials close by, maybe a kirana shop or something like that, grocery shop and so on. So it's add a value to the project. So most of the developer are trying to do in that way. And that's a more workable model, where particularly to a particular community or particular section or particular business field, you try to reserve the shop and try to subsidize it, and that adds a value to the entire colony or the entire project.
If you're talking about plain, simple, without redevelopment kind of a project, then it's a different case altogether. Like for example, if you're doing a real high-end 60-story tower in South Mumbai, and then you expect a barber to be found to find some space down there, it's wishful thinking. And even if I reserve certain place for this laundry guy to sit there, soon you will find that if it is handed over to the society to maintain it, you will come across a situation where the price point of that piece of small 500 square feet area where he's sitting on, he may pass it on to somebody else and move on. So maintenance of that facility in those high-end buildings will be difficult. But let me tell you that the occupants of those buildings are also different. They'll be the ones who will be actually traveling distances, going to five-star hotels to go to a saloon, etc. And obviously the need or your 5 rupees a haircut barber will be redundant in that situation.
No, it's not a 5 rupees haircut. It's that 10 rupees packet of milk that needs to come to your home every day. You don't want to travel for it, no matter where you're living. So there's some basic needs. A pharmacy is a basic need. That's what, anyway, but I think that you've answered the question that probably most redevelopment projects actually return the stores back to the developers, to the residents. Coming to an important point, I understand, as developers, all of us are doing our bit, and as experts, you're probably pushing the government and everybody else in the real estate industry to support the whole real estate growth. But where do you think government is not improving the policy, or do you think policy becomes a big hindrance for the real estate to grow? Let's just have it probably one area from each one of you. What could perhaps be the one most important thing you feel that government needs to move if things have to happen?
I think there is no leadership in a single item. So we need to go right from infrastructure to FSI to permissions to implementation, and I think ultimately to delivery in terms of action. I think a lot of way we have to go before we can really get results.
That the first one is, if you can call this sector as an industry, I think that's the first suggestion. And second suggestion, the approval procedure, which ultimately Prime Minister is talking, everyone is talking, involves human touch, human element. It involves corruption and a lot of malpractices. So we want to hand over the approval procedure, whether environment clearance, whether high-rise committee clearance, or whether plane checking and so on, to our architect's friend. In a similar way, the building plans need to be approved by the architects. We don't want the municipal officer to touch it while giving the approval. They can just inspect it. I think if this is done, I think it will be a great revolution in the whole sector. I think approval of the plan, if you delegate to a private architects, maybe 10-year experience and so on, and if they can approve the plan in 48 hours, I think 2 days time, in that time in India, one building is constructed at Chandigarh. So if the plan can be approved in 48 hours, I think you will see the complete surplus, what Niranjan is talking, that will happen, the actual reality.
I think there has been no clear vision at all for real estate development. There have been benefits given to different industries in the past, such as to exporters, but there has been nothing for real estate. The nature of human beings is to want to congregate in certain places. Therefore, there is an urbanization. When we know that there is an urbanization and we know that there is such a great density of population in certain areas, like in a city like Mumbai, the population density is 20,000 per square kilometer. In London, it's 5,100 per square kilometer. In Shanghai, it's 13,400 per square kilometer. So you can see that Bombay is so densely populated. But actually, urban development should be the creation of new urban areas. If they were to have better roads and say, okay, now we are earmarking this area of 100 square kilometers here and here and here, and we have 50 such townships set up in the state, with just a road facility and electricity and basic water, and so on. Now we don't have to worry about telecommunications because of the mobile phones.
Right.
Otherwise, that used to be a constraint. Then this would just open up the countryside, and it would open up economic opportunities everywhere and bring down the prices that we've been talking about in Bombay and average things out.
So basically, you're saying that transport and infrastructure should go hand in hand.
Really, just that is needed.
Yeah.
In addition to that, I think these are, the thoughts on what government should do for us. But I mean, if you look at this industry has been, almost branded as something which should not exist, despite of the fact that we have been and we are, and I think we would continue to be one of the biggest contributors to the GDP. So I think it is also the time for us to come together as a community and, probably bring this to the government and get the ball rolling.
Real estate can never work in isolation. These administrative issues, like your whether we're talking about plan approvals or FARs and so on and so forth, will ultimately fall in place once we have the master planning and infrastructure going hand in hand before real estate. What unfortunately happening is that we are absolutely reactive. We first create building and then think about doing a road outside it. You construct as much as you can so far as you are fulfilling the requirements of setback areas and height restrictions, etc. Once you have that in place, the infrastructure is supporting you, the prices will automatically be under control.
Yeah, more reason.
Because you can go outside, say 30 kilometers outside the city center in Hyderabad, but still reach the city center in not more than 30 minutes.
Right.
So it's all that thing, all of these things have to happen simultaneously, and then can we think of any improvement in real estate. Else we'll continue to talk in isolation, else we'll continue to shout and crib in isolation, and nothing is going to happen.
I would certainly like for you, Mr. Hiranandani, if you can say that, I feel the most important connect between the developer and the home buyer is the broker. What would you suggest to him? How does he need to change his role? How does he need to go across to the buyer to be able to make the right sale and actually pass on your commitment, with the very vision that you must have started the project to the home buyer?
I think he's got to behave like every other service provider in any other business. And I think even the builder has to become a service provider. So it's not only about the agent, consultant or anybody. I think the builders also have to be more service oriented now, and I think instead of building being a product which you deliver to the customer, if you treat the building as a service which you're delivering to the customer, I think it make a world of difference. So you got to be more educated, you should be more knowledgeable, you have to be more transparent, you have to be more honest, you have to be deliverable, all the things that any service, whether you're selling a car or a building or whatever, I think you need to be service oriented. So for anybody who's a consultant or an agent or broker, whatever you want to say, I think he needs to be educated, knowledgeable and service oriented.
We have more than 3 million brokers in India. They play a very important role, particularly when you go for private land buying. Land assembling also, they can play a very vital role. I think that's the first part. Second part about selling the properties as well as renting out the property to the existing home buyer. I think they can play a very vital role in this whole system, and they could be a great supporters because entire stock market works on the complete broker system. I think they don't have, the exchanges doesn't operate on their own. It is completely brokers mechanism. So I think similar experience we can try here. I have met a couple of brokers in London where my son is studying, and they take the complete responsibility. When you buy, when you want to take a property on rent, the complete deposits mechanism, negotiation mechanism is undertaken through the brokers. So I think they can play a very vital role, and they can be a great supporter to this industry because developers cannot reach everywhere, and I feel they have a great scope, they have a great role. Only I think some modern technology, use of technology, communication, knowledge of the land papers, I think those are the need of the time, which I believe their association is trying to do and work hard on that. But they can play a very, very vital role, very, very important role in the entire real estate gamut.
The agent is the last mile connectivity.
Absolutely.
So that is very important. And he has to be, especially today, very professional. He has to have all the information at his fingertips. He has to be able to use technology, use computers and videos to show people in order to save everyone's time, because no one has time to go around looking. But more than all this, he has to be able to think and understand the requirement of the customer. I remember one broker told me, and he was very proud of his achievement, and I also thought it was wonderful. He said that if a person came to him and said, I've been looking for a flat and I've seen 100 flats, but I'm just not able to find anything. This broker understood the client's requirement. He took him to one flat, and that was the flat that the customer liked.
I think, the broker's role has largely been in real estate is that of introducing the client to the developer. I think if they can take a step ahead and also be involved into the transaction and closure of the transaction to the satisfaction of the customer, that would help both the developer as well as the customer largely.
Where do you think this relationship has evolved over the last few years, and where do you think it should go to make your work easier?
Well, if I talk about the international property consulting firms, we are here for hardly some 17 or 18 years. But the real estate of the country has been surviving on brokers forever. And there have been cases of many of these, in fact, there are legendary developers who started as brokers and have turned into developers themselves. And there are names after names that I can talk of, then it's not the right platform. But having said that, I can only say so much that service delivery level, service delivery mechanism, understanding customer needs will drive. It's ultimately a free market. Over a period of time, those, unfortunately, another issue with our system is that Panwala and a Chowkidar can also become a broker, and that's the most unfortunate part of it. And that's exactly where the brokers are, the good brokers are lost in the crowd. And the poor end users are, first encountered with these watchmen and the secretaries of the societies and the Panwalas, etc., as brokers, and then they come down to somebody who's more organized and more a knowledgeable kind of a person to help him as a broker. But over a period of time, I can say that we have seen in last decade and a half or two, the things have drastically changed. And there are enough of consulting firms, enough of agents who are non-IPCs, who are locals who have understood the requirements. And I feel there are a few of them who are perhaps doing much better than many of the IPCs are doing. So it's only a point to ponder. It's a very simple thing. If you are concerned about the deliverables, if you are concerned about customer satisfaction, you don't really need a big brand name. An individual can also be a good broker. Only thing is systems, knowledge, and customer requirement is what is the absolute requirement.
Sure. So I guess with this, I think in interest of time, let's do the talking more one-to-one. So I'd like to thank the gentleman over here. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. We really appreciate it.